Pranama Acharya ji. What is the relationship between the brain and the mind in light of meditation?
The big problem in Western philosophy and sciences is they view the mind and the body as two completely separate entities, and that is generally called mind-body problem. And later, what the physics and the biology teaches is there is no mind as a separate entity. All that is there is simply physical entities. There is just brain, there is no mind, there is no self. Self is just an illusion, and there are just neurons, and the interaction of the neurons, you have the simulation of experience. You don't have actual transparency, or you are just have reflexes, like and just like the chicken cut and still like dancing around. The same way you are having some reflexes, but there is no real free will. Free will is also illusion. That is one type of philosophy there. But in opposite, what we are saying, either the opposite of the dualism or opposite of this physicalism, what we are suggesting is everything is surrounded or grounded on pure consciousness, and this is not just the product of the brain. Brain rather is a processor that only allows us to filter and project a particular reality in a particular way. That pure consciousness is fragmented or conditioned according to our own brain or according to our own what we call samskara or instinct. So what happens then when our own samskara or imprints are not conducive to our own survival? Sometimes some people have neurological disorder, but other times we develop all the stress and trauma and like a attention disorder, or we have many forms, schizophrenia or whatever types of psychological disorder we are talking about. All these remodify, remodel, reconstitute our brain, and it is not just the mind. So the state of the mind conditions the brain, and the same way the condition of the brain also reconstitutes the mind. So that gives us space to do yoga or meditation. In what sense? In the sense that if you are used to having a repeated thought of a particular type, mostly depressing type, because I really do not know anybody who is so addicted to remembering only the joyous things in his life. People are addicted to remembering only the traumatizing things in their life, and what that does, that creates neural pathways, and we keep repeating the same memory because there is this neurological path that the circuit mind keeps moving along the same path again and again, and like a scratching, it feels good, like when you are used to scratching yourself, there is a little scratch in your brain happening. These neurons make a particular pathways. There's a neural network, and what we call neuroplasticity, that is a new remodeling of the brain. And then by meditation, by repeating mantras, for example, by repeating a particular thought of love, compassion, positive thoughts, what it does, it also creates a parallel or a different set of neurological pattern if you give enough time. Because the problem is we do not need to give any designated time to have negative thoughts, because we are so used to having them all the time. But we need to create some time, some space in our life to have that time designated just for that particular, either the positive thought of love, kindness, or just repeating certain words or repeating in the mind certain images, playing certain images again and again that are emotionally neutral. For example, I like to meditate on a triangle, and outside that is a hexagon, and outside that is a petal lotus. This is just an example. So in that I am emotionally neutral. When I think of the lotus, it doesn't make me cry, it doesn't make me laugh, it doesn't make me mad. It's emotionally neutral object. Therefore, we teach meditation in Tantra upon the objects that are completely neurologically, emotionally neutral. By creating that type of object, what we do, people are able to focus on those particularly geometric designs because they are culturally universal. Triangle is not culturally a propriety of the Indians at the contrast of the Greek or anything like that. Triangles are triangles. So we use those universal symbols and the phonemes. As some phonemes we may not consider universal, but all the people have the similar vocal cord. Mostly humans have, mostly similar, and so we can use those vocal sounds, and we focus on those specific phonemes. And then we call that the collection of those phonemes, we call those mantras. And there is a selection, there is a method of selection, because different phonemes affect different regions of the brain. They have different stimulation point in our bodily centers, and these different mantras are built up in relationship to different bodily centers, stimulating different parts of the brain, different centers, different chakras we call. And what that does, it creates neural pathways in a different form. It gives you new type of neural plasticity. And what about this brain or that brain? Basically, brain is brain. It is not just one single thing of the right processing like images and left processing thoughts or logic. But broadly speaking, that type of hemispheric division does work, like broadly, not absolutely, but broadly. So therefore, what you need to know is when you are using thoughts, you are playing with pure concepts, you are thinking logically, processing philosophical thoughts, you are activating your left side of the brain, and you are meditating on triangle, hexagon, square, whatever, you are activating right side of the brain. In tantric meditation, we simultaneously process the both. So in culture, what is happening, in primitive cultures, people had less of the language, more of the images. So therefore, right side of the brain was prevalent. In people, when these days they go to school, and then we teach them to think and logic, and then they are activating left side of the brain. And what happens, like in old days when we are memorizing, those memory objects were like external objects. The right side of the brain, harnessed a lot of memory, so the left side could analyze what the right side has already stored in the mind. Now we are almost ignoring that part because we don't pay much attention to memory, we don't pay much attention to images, we are more logic oriented people. And I tell people to meditate on like a 10-headed goddess, or carrying like 18 arms or whatever, and then they say I can't do it. So because it's not about God and goddesses we are trying to impose on you. We are creating really complex object of visualization, and you can consider these are mnemonic devices. There's mnemonic devices were used in ancient Greece too, not just India. And this is what helps you memorize. Suppose I have to memorize a long mantra, the mantra having more than like 50 words or 1000 words, and I am just thinking about them, halfway through I just get lost, another thought comes. Try it, because I don't bullshit, I tell you what I have practiced. And so what I do, I compartmentalize the words. Like I have 15 words here, 10 words here, 8 words, I am giving random numbers. I have particular number, I am not telling you what number, what word, because I have not told you what are those long mantras that I visualize. But when I geographically locate particular words within my body in different centers, I have no problem to finish all those long mantras that are otherwise impossible to go through. without reading in the book, because try doing it. If you know a long passage and then when you articulate it, it is easy, because there is something peculiar about vocalization. When you vocalize, you can remember all the passages very well. But when you stop vocalizing and then you are trying to recollect a really long passage, for example, try doing Bhemo and then you are stuck. You go halfway through, not even halfway through, your mind starts thinking of something else or the other, you are stuck. But then when you install that in different centers of your body, different chakras or petals in the mandala, you can complete it without any problem. Meaning, what we are trying to do with the chakras, the mandalas, all of these, we are creating mnemonic devices for our mind to stay tuned on the given object. What we are trying to do then, we are trying to create a new structure for your brain by that. Brain and the mind do not think as different, but unlike what the physicalists are saying today, there is only brain, I am saying the opposite, there is only mind. Meaning, your brain can be reorganized, re-articulated by your thoughts. So your physical conditions can be restructured by having particular thoughts, and that gives, my guru Khattar Baba taught a book called Vichar Vigyan, the science of thought, the science of thought. And in that book he has stressed so much about how much of what we think affects our reality and starts changing our whole perspective, and the whole world gets re-articulated based on our thought. So this is what the practice is all about, and there is no separation of the body and the mind. The re-engineering of the mind as a consequence will re-engineer our body too, not the physical body alone, but then in the subtle level our neural structures, and therefore we have to take it as a wholesome project. Thank you.
For more free teachings from Acharya Sthaneshwar, visit www.vimarshafoundation.org. And if you learned something from this post, share it with a friend.